Go over here to Brian. Go ahead.
Brian Nelson, Motor Racing Network. The degree to which you're racing the track here versus racing your opponents, how aggressive can you afford to be? How bold can you afford to be here at Darlington? And is there an element of patience that you need to be successful?
It's more like 90% racing the racetrack and 10% racing the competition. But there are times where it can be almost 50% racing the competition, like on restart. So you have to just be respectful of the racetrack, respectful of the wall. Any kind of slip up, it's not like at Richmond where you get in a little hot and you can slide up to the second lane. It doesn't happen like that here. You slide up to the second lane and your right side's 6 inches into the wall. So it's just demanding, and you have to race the racetrack the entire time. You get to a place like Michigan, it's so wide open that you don't even, it's like racing the racetrack's only 10% of it. Racing the competition's 60% of it, and managing your tires is, another 30% of it. So there's things that, change around different racetracks, but here it's 90% racing the racetrack.
All right, we'll go with Claire, and then we'll go with Andy. Go ahead, Claire.
Claire B. Lang, Sirius NASCAR Radio. I spoke with John Darby in the garage at Richmond after your group was huddled in the garage there. None of them really wanted to say anything. And John said that you had met with them for a half hour and that you made some points, some valid points, actually. Do you feel like NASCAR understood what you had to say in that meeting? And I asked if they were going to pull the two of you together, and John said, let's see what happens when we get to Darlington. So do you feel like you made any progress, that they explained anything back to you, that they heard what you had to say?
I would say it was progress. I think there were some explanations done on both sides that, open each other's eyes. And ultimately, I don't know if there's an answer, but, it was a tough situation that night because of the way everything unfolded. I thought it was the best thing from my standpoint because of the things that I was told to go into the hauler and have a discussion first before I address the situation in any way possible. And, some people out there think that that's crying and being a little whiner, but they're not racing anymore. So ultimately, I don't know how it's all going to play out. I don't want to do anything to his team or to my team in a bad way. Like I said, it was a personal thing, and it'll get handled personally.
Okay, let's go to Andy, and then Jim.
Andy Shane from the State Newspaper. Ryan, with the change in the point systems and the change in the chase, how important is it going to be for you to collect a couple of wins, considering now that you're kind of sitting on the edge of the top 10, now that you're a third of the way through the regular season?
Well, with the points, if the winners percentage works out the way it did last year, one win will make you a chase contender. 2 wins will guarantee you a spot. And if you win 2 races, as a couple guys have done now, the rest of the summer is, potentially just a matter of either collecting more wins or, trying different things because you're into the chase. I mean, based on the history. So, there's different theories and there's different ways of looking at it. We don't typically look at it that way, but that's a new structure that could be viewed that way. And, we're doing our best to win each and every week, just to win once. So we'll address that if we get that fortunate.
Go ahead, Jim.
Jim Hunter, Show Observer. Ryan, you and Tony both started the season pretty hot, and he's in recent weeks expressed some displeasure about having difficulty, at least with his car, in getting the turn correctly. You appear, at least on the outside, to have you guys to be a little bit better positioned. How would you evaluate where the two teams are? Do you guys have a similar situation as Tony does, or do you address it a little differently?
We have a similar situation because we're dealing with similar parameters, but I think, I do know that our cars haven't been set up exactly the same, and I think that his problems are a little bit worse than ours with respect to some of the complaints he has with his race car. Tony Gibson and I have worked really hard in this off season and the start of the season to communicate better, and we're not where we want to be, points wise, finishing wise. Tony started out great. He should have won 2 of the first 3 races. So, we feel like we have a really good package at certain racetracks and certain certain racetracks we go back to that we had a good package at, we struggle with. Sometimes the tire changes. Sometimes we take a different race car and we just don't get it right. So I think overall we're close. I mean, you look at the way our start is to the season right now, having both cars in the top 10, it's the strongest start for Stewart-Haas. But in saying that, we're not 1-2.
Two more questions. Dustin, and then end with Dwight.
Dustin Long, Landmark Newspapers. Ryan, a couple things. Jeff Gordon said a few drivers had texted him after his comments after the Richmond incident and thanked him for bringing up the issue of the safer barrier. Wanted to ask if you had been one of those that had texted him in appreciation of what he said after what he'd gone through. And two, you talked about just kind of moving forward and learning from this. What more do you want to see or can be seen out of the dialogue between the drivers and maybe NASCAR or the safety officials to have a better understanding? I think in some cases there may be some hard hits out there that don't register as high G-force, that may not register for officials that something needs to be done, whereas you're in the car getting hit. Do you guys, is there enough going back and forth to understand how this process works or what more can be done so you guys are better informed and other officials who are making these recommendations are better informed on the situation?
No, I did not text him. I don't even have his phone number. Second part of that was, I think that it's been more responsive than it has, the last 4 or 5 years as far as our communication with NASCAR from a driver's standpoint, talking about the cars, talking about the hits, and saying that there was some change in personnel with the loss of Steve Peterson and working through some of those things that have made a difference in the way we communicate. But ultimately, I think that they've done a good job. They can always do a better job. Just in the instance of Richmond with the safer barriers and communicating, and there's been some steps from what I understand. I haven't seen it firsthand, but at Pocono, places like that where we've opened up communications from the driver's standpoint, and that makes a big difference. So the message can be delivered, but the message can be delivered in the wrong way too. So it's all a matter of timing. And usually when we get the microphone in front of our face and voice our opinion, it's not the best of timing. So it's hard for them to listen to everything we say. I understand that.
But that's often your opportunity to say something.
It's mostly off. Yeah. Otherwise, if we go up in the trailer, then we're considered whiners or complainers. So it's tough. I mean, there's times in the week when we're doing other things that we should be talking about. Calling Mr. Darby or Mr. Helton or Mr. Pemberton and talking about the things that we could do to be better. But just it's no different than anything else you do. Sometimes you forget the eggs when you go to the grocery store. Go ahead. Last question.
Dwight Drum, Racetake.com. Ryan, you mentioned that the track is 90% the track also collects a lot of right sides and collects some fenders. Do you consider Darlington track an ally?
I just I consider it a what? An ally? I just enjoy racing here. I always have from the very first lap. I came here with Buddy Baker. The opportunity to drive here in the Nationwide Series was a lot of fun, and on the racetrack and off. I like the area, I like the people, I like the places, I like the history of NASCAR, and the racetrack just makes it that much more icing on top of the cake, and I like icing.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.